Today's case is a crazy one. Very, very wild, I don't even know how to describe it, guys, but it takes us to Oahu, Hawaii. And an Oahu man brutally murdered a cleaner and then kidnapped her daughter in a slaying and a case that has truly rocked this Hawaiian island. The details are insane. This case is so crazy, guys. So we are going to dive right into everything. I'm Elise. This is 10 to Life. Buckle up. Telma Boinville moved from Brazil to Hawaii in the 1990s. She made a life for herself. She got married and had a daughter, Makana. Telma and her family eventually settled in the North Shore, Oahu. North Shore is the surfing mecca of Hawaii and is overall a pretty laid-back small town for the locals, despite it being a huge tourist destination for surfers. Telma was a beautiful spirit, a loving mom and wife, and she devoted her life to helping kids as a teacher. Living on the North Shore was perfect, as Telma loved surfing, running, yoga, and even martial arts. And who wouldn't love living here? It's literally paradise, and probably doesn't get much better than that as a place to live. In December of 2017, Telma was working as a kindergarten teacher at Sunset Beach Elementary School. Telma also had a part-time job cleaning rental homes like AirBnB and VRBO to make some extra money for an upcoming vacation that she was planning. Well, on December 7th, 2017, Telma brought her daughter Makana along with her to a 2-story vacation home that Telma was supposed to clean that day. Later on, guests from Australia were going to arrive for their scheduled check-in. Telma left Makana, who was only 8 years old at the time, in the car to watch a movie while she went inside to clean. Not necessarily a huge risk in a small town like that. It was a tourist town, yes, but it was locals and calm and beautiful. Nobody would ever think that something like what happened would occur. Upon entering the house, completely unbeknownst to Telma, there were 2 people already inside. But the people inside were not the guests from Australia who were expected. Instead, these 2 people were in the middle of burglarizing the home. While Makana was watching the movie in the car, a man with green hair covered in blood grabbed her out of the car and said, "We killed your mom." The man then carried Makana into the house up to the 2nd floor, all while a woman was following the man with this green hair. Once upstairs in a bedroom, they tied 8-year-old Makana's feet and hands to the bed, taped her mouth shut, and put a bag over her head. It's unclear how much time passed after this, but then those guests from Australia arrived at the house. One of the guests walked in, saw a body, and ran right back outside and called the police. When the police arrived, they found Telma downstairs in a gruesome bloodbath and deceased, which we will get into the details here in a little bit, guys. Then officers found Makana, who was upstairs and still alive and physically unharmed. Police were horrified after seeing the condition of Telma's body and quickly tried to figure out who committed one of the most heinous crimes that ever occurred on the North Shore. The 2 people who were responsible for Telma's death also had stolen her car, and luckily police were able to track down the car just a few hours after her body was discovered. The people responsible for this brutal and disgusting murder was actually a local couple. Haley Dandurand, who's 20 years old, and Stephen Brown, who's 23 years old. The couple was arrested at the Walmart. Police said that Telma's credit card was in one of Haley's pockets. They both had dried blood on their hands as well.
The 2 North Shore murder suspects accused in the brutal beating death of 51-year-old Telma Boinville just had their first initial court appearance, neither of them making statements before the judge, still shackled and in their police-issued clothes. That's because we're told the clothes they were wearing when they were arrested Thursday night in Mililani has been taken as evidence because it was covered with dried blood. 23-year-old Stephen Brown is charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and burglary. He remains in custody custody on $1 million bond. 20-year-old Haley Danduran also remains in custody on a $500,000 bond. She's facing the same charges. Earlier this morning, Stephen Brown's family sent a statement to Hawaii News Now saying they're reaching out to Telma's beautiful family and grieving with them. They described the actions their adopted son is accused of as despicable and heinous.
At the time of their arrest, they already had outstanding warrants, and they were later indicted with second-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and first-degree burglary. Haley and Stephen didn't go quietly either. According to reports, when they were arrested, Stephen was allegedly very combative and uncooperative and told officers, "Just shoot me, I deserve this." And Haley had something similar to say, asking the officer, "Can you just pull your gun out and shoot me in the head? My life is over after today." Well, hi, it didn't have to be, lady. Like, what are you even talking about? You didn't have to do any of this. Your life wouldn't have to be over. News reporters said that an angry mob of other locals watched and shouted obscenities as they were taken into custody. And then, even more sickening, when they were brought into the Honolulu Police Department, Haley and Stephen were laughing and smirking at the news cameras. So going from scared, I would think remorseful, if you're saying I deserve it, just shoot me, to now smirking and laughing, almost gloating or proud of what they had done. When they were brought into court a few days later, the judge gave Stephen a $1 million bond and Haley a $500,000 bond. They both pled, you guessed it, not guilty. Telma's husband Kevin spoke out after the news of his wife's death, saying, "Her extra job put her in the wrong place at the wrong time. They tied up my daughter and they beat my wife to death with a baseball bat. They won't even let me in the house because it's so bad." Now, the baseball bat was recovered at the scene, as well as other horrifying items near Telma's body, which included a hammer, a meat tenderizer, a kitchen knife, a folding knife, and a machete. Court records also stated it's nearly impossible to count the number of distinct injuries inflicted upon her head, neck, torso, upper and lower extremities. The Honolulu medical examiner said that Telma's cause of death was blunt force trauma and sharp force trauma to the head, and also that none of the injuries were inflicted after her death, meaning she sustained all of the injuries from all of these different weapons while she was still alive. The torture and pain that she must have experienced and fear knowing her daughter was right outside and that these animals could be inflicting this on her next it just has to haunt you when you think about it. It is horrific. The day after Telma was found, the North Shore community rallied together at a vigil. People that worked with Telma or knew her were grief-stricken and completely shell-shocked that something like this would even happen in their happy, beachy town. One friend even said she did everything she could to be with people. She would celebrate life. Kevin, Telma's husband, spoke at the vigil as well and surprisingly said, "It's very hard for me to say this right now, but I forgive you. To the person who did this, I know this is an act of evil." So, yes, evil, 1000%, no question about it. So let's talk about these evil monsters. Who are these evil freaks? Well, Haley's former roommate, Ray, that's what he wanted to be called for this interview, so we're just going to call him Ray, told Hawaii News Now that the suspects were weird. That is his direct quote, weird. You know, I know, highly intelligent, this Ray guy. The article said that Haley was one of 10 tenants renting out a room in a house in Honolulu. She moved in around August, and that's when Ray met Stephen, who apparently went by the name Axel Hayes Hendricks. Okay? Axel Reyes Hendricks. No, your name is Stephen. I don't understand. I think he was trying to make up a cooler name, and so he went by Axel Hayes Hendricks. Like, guys, I'm embarrassed. I'm cringing for you, Stephen. I'm cringing for you. Ray told Hawaii News Now he was always weird. The first encounter we had with him, he got a dog, which we're not supposed to have in the house, and he actually spray painted the dog and let it loose in the house. He would also write his name inside of people's rooms. It would be small and subtle, and we wouldn't realize it until we were starting to clean some of these places out. It feels weird to say it, but you could see him doing something like that. Murder. Sometimes these criminals really leave me speechless, and right now is one of those times. I don't even know what to say to this guy. Apparently he did write his name in the house and spray painted the dog, which is weird, which I guess I'm not even coming up with a more clever word either, and clever adjective. It's weird, it's weird, it's weird, it's weird. So sorry, Ray, for the shade earlier. It's weird. Now, Stephen also had a previous domestic charge on his record from Haley, but the details around that are unclear, other than she ended up dropping all of the charges. Now, I'm not 100% on all of this, but from what I have gathered, Stephen was born in Ohio and grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, with foster parents. Haley was from Bend, Oregon, and they only had been dating for a few months at the time. But other than that, there is unfortunately not that much information on either one of them. There are some rumors on social media, but I wasn't able to verify anything that I found. As Haley and Stephen were awaiting trial, Haley's attorney asked for her bail to be reduced from $500,000 to $100,000 so that she could live with her mother while she waited for the trial, and also requested a separate trial from Stephen since initially they were being charged together. In the motion her attorney filed, it stated that the defendant may pursue one or more of the following defenses: choice of evils, PTSD, and battered spouse defense. The prosecution told the judge that the address Haley provided to be released to doesn't even exist, and that she also has a history of being a runaway. So, was she really trying to go stay with her mom, or was she trying to flee? Kevin, Telma's husband, also begged the judge to not reduce the bail, saying, "They brutally murdered my wife with a baseball bat, and she was simply trying to work an extra job to help us go on a snowboarding trip. She wasn't a house cleaner. My wife was a Department of Education school teacher, and she had a passion for helping and working with kids. My daughter constantly wakes up with nightmares. She's scared. They tied her up, they duct taped her, and I think they're very dangerous people. They should never see freedom." The judge responded in a written decision stating this: "The fact that she was found with the victim's daughter's backpack on her back and Telma's earrings on her ears speaks to the callousness and indifference she felt towards this mother and child. Thus, this consideration weighs in favor of leaving defendant Danduran's bail undisturbed and declining her request for supervised release." Okay, I'm sorry, but we have to just kind of pause here for a second. She was wearing the backpack of this little girl that she tied up, duct taped, and put a bag on her head. And on top of that, she was also wearing Telma's earrings, the woman she left for dead, next to a hammer, a meat tenderizer, knives, and a machete, with too many injuries all over her body to even count. And this sick excuse for a human took a moment after killing her to take her earrings off, pop them in her own ears, and decide to wear them. Then take this 8-year-old girl's backpack, throw it on her back, and cruise into Walmart. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? We talk about a lot of cases, and the majority of them are extremely disturbing and cruel. But seriously, this is beyond wicked and evil in my opinion. Which, let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this and what other cases come to mind where the perpetrator wore the victim's belongings right after, because I know there are a ton and there are a few that come to mind for me right now. So 2 years passed by and the trial for these suspects was pushed back. The defense was granted a delay after it said that it needed more time to review evidence. Telma's family says that they want justice for Telma's murder and for the trauma that her daughter Makana went through having been there when it all happened. Kevin, Makana's dad, said, "It's not easy. I mean, I miss my wife all the time, every day, every hour, every minute. Yesterday was Mother's Day. My daughter didn't have a chance to wake up and give her mother flowers like we do every year. She actually made a Mother's Day card while at school, as a 4th grader with her class. She gave it to me yesterday, as now I'm her mother and her father. I fear that my daughter might see this person again and re-scar all that she's been dealing with. You know my daughter is traumatized. She's scared of the dark. She wakes up throughout the night. I can hear her talking in the night. She has nightmares." Unfortunately, the family would have to wait even longer for justice, because a few more years passed by as the wheels of justice turned extremely slowly, and it was filled with countless continuances on both the state's part and the defense's part. Motions, status hearings, you name it, everything was just delayed. The state was finally ready for trial in April 2022, almost 5 years after the horrific murder. But this still wasn't enough time for the defense, and the trial got pushed back all the way until just this past month, in January of 2023.
Took her out of the truck, and as he did so, said, "We killed your mom." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a murder case.
Opening statements were heard today in the murder of 51-year-old Telma Boinville. She was killed in cold blood on December 7th of 2017 in a home on Oahu's North Shore that she had been hired to clean.
Well, a high-profile case from the beginning, now back in the public eye, new and gruesome details of the burglary turned fatal.
Stephen Brown and girlfriend at the time, Haley Dandurand, were accused of killing 51-year-old Telma Boinville and tying up her 8-year-old daughter in a Pupukea vacation home.
Why don't you go ahead and explain to us what you remember seeing?
Okay, I saw a body lying on its stomach. Hands and feet were tied behind the back, and I saw blood.
Her head, face, shoulders, torso, arms, hands were strewn with blunt force and sharp force injuries.
Members of the jury heard extensive details of what prosecuting attorney Scott Bell described as a brutal attack. Boinville killed in cold blood, blood he would indicate authorities found extensively on both Brown and Dandurand.
While in the hospital, defendant Brown said, "I know what you're trying to do," to the officers who were trying to cover his hands with paper and tape. "If you're not going to help me, I'm going to help him myself," as he began to lick the blood from his hands.
Jurors were then walked through pictures of the crime scene, state-collected evidence, and prosecuting witness testimony.
This is the Patron bottle that I recovered from that blue Foodland shopping bag. Result was I recovered a latent fingerprint that I submitted.
Forensic evidence and anecdotes from the scene justified by defending attorney William Bagasol as unreflective to the state, intentions, and actions of his client Stephen Brown.
Burglary, yes. Kidnapping, yes. But he didn't want to see Telma Boinville die. That is not what he actually intended. That's not what he actually did.
The defense stated it was Brown's counterpart, Haley Dandurand, who have acted out the murder. The two are being tried separately, with Dandurand's trial expected to begin this summer.
We deserve justice. What happened to my wife, she didn't deserve that. We didn't deserve that. We're a good family.
Officer Aaron Evelyn testified that he walked into the home 5 years ago and found Telma Boinville unresponsive in a pool of blood. Evelyn also told the jury he went upstairs and found the victim's then 8-year-old daughter, Makana, tied up and her mouth was covered.
I'm eating my crackers.
Makana is now a teenager. Her father gave us permission to show just how much she has grown while the family awaits justice for Telma's murder. On Tuesday afternoon, Deputy Prosecutor Scott Bell called to the stand the officers who arrested suspect Stephen Brown hours after the victim's body was found.
The male appeared a little bit agitated that I was there. He took like a step back, and with his right hand he actually lifted up the front half of his sweater. I could see what he had was like a folded pocket knife. We're trying to handcuff him, but he's fighting with us. So we're telling him stop resisting. He continued to say, "You should have shot me, you should have killed me."
In action-packed day 3, defending attorney William Bagasol calling for a mistrial early in the morning, referring to a motion in the courtroom Tuesday as unprofessional and a negative influence on the jury.
I haven't seen an officer cry, much less cry like that for 35 years in front of a jury. Because it's an officer. We can expect this. We've been expected this from the family and from the child. Respectfully ask the court to grant a motion for mistrial.
However, trial would proceed. More witness testimony, officers, doctors, and first responders painting the picture of the moments following the fatal attack. First, tracking down Telma Boinville's truck found in a Walmart parking lot, latent fingerprints placing Brown in the driver's seat.
Latent means not visible. So we all know when we leave fingerprints, you can't see it. There were recovered latent fingerprints on the driver's seat belt buckles.
The crime scene at Keiki Road began in the living room where Telma Boinville had died, a meat tenderizer near her body.
She was on the floor. She had a bag over her head, and her hands were behind her back.
Retired Officer Frances Hill said she also saw Boinville's daughter, Makana, tied and gagged but alive upstairs, and later found Boinville's debit card in Dondurand's hoodie. Another officer was with Dondurand after her arrest.
She said something to the effect of, "Officer, you may as well pull your gun out and just shoot me. After today, my life is over."
Both Dondurand, who was 20, and Brown, who was 23, had blood from Boinville on them, some on Brown's hands.
He wanted us to let him wash his hands, and then after that he said, if you're not going to help me, I'm going to help myself.
Officer Christopher Young had taped bags around Brown's hands.
He began to bite them off with his teeth, and he tried to lick the blood off of his hands.
Brown had to be chased down and tackled after officers spotted him at Mililani Town Center.
Mr. Brown was very combative, non-compliant. We gave numerous commands to stop resisting, and which time we were able to detain him.
The couple was tracked to the center, where they arrived in their wanted Toyota truck with the radio blaring.
My mom was saying, like, oh my gosh, kids blasting their music all the time. Like, why?
The truck was a trove of stolen possessions, including Mokana's slippers and backpack and the family's camera equipment.
Well, an emotion-filled day for family and friends of the Boinville Emerys gathering in and around the courtroom. Taking the stand for the very first time, husband Kevin Emery and daughter Mokana Boinville Emery.
I got a phone call from a police officer saying that my wife was just found dead and that my daughter was with him in an ambulance.
Mokana, just 8 years old at the time of the attack, taken upstairs and tied up by a man and woman in the home her mother was killed in. She recalls a traumatic encounter with the suspects, described as the boy with green hair and the girl with pink hair.
He came to the truck and grabbed me.
Do you remember what he told you?
Yeah, we killed your mom. And they took me into a bedroom where they tied me up.
Identifying critical evidence recovered from the scene, the two identifying these pictures of Brown and girlfriend at the time, Haley Dandurand, as the prime suspects.
How sure are you that the boy and girl in that picture are the same boy and girl who tied you up?
100%.
On December 7, 2017, did you give a person named Stephen Brown, whom we see in State's Exhibit 313, permission to tie up your daughter?
Absolutely not.
Other witnesses to take the stand, criminologists and evidence specialists detailing the forensic findings of the day. Graphic images of bruises, lacerations, and stab wounds evoking emotion in the courtroom. DNA found on weapons and blood samples suggesting the presence of both Brown and Dandurand at the crime scene.
Did you test the 2 swabs taken from the left hand of Stephen Brown for the presence of human blood?
Yes, human blood was indicated on the sample. Telma Boinville, Stephen Brown, and Haley Dandurand cannot be excluded as possible contributors to this DNA mixture.
The medical examiner assigned to the Boinville case described the condition of Telma Boinville's body as bloodied, arms and feet bound together, with wounds on her neck, throat, and arms. Boinville's autopsy revealing sharp and blunt force trauma as the cause of her death.
When you have a heavy thing like a cleaver or a machete or a sword, then we have the marginal abrasion. So I'm just indicating that here.
Standing on the argument that Haley Dandurand was the aggravator of the entire home invasion, Brown walked the jury not only through the events of December 7th, 2017, but into the lives and personalities the two led prior to the fatal attack. He described the once love of his life as crazy, spontaneous, and uncaring about her actions and behaviors.
We'd go into stores and she could just steal stuff like it was nothing, and I don't know, she was different. I mean.
As for the day of the attack itself, Brown talked about a camping trip leading up to the robbery and the first encounter with then housekeeper Telma Boinville.
Isn't it true that she yelled at you, "What are you doing in the house?" and an argument ensued?
It wasn't much of an argument. There was a conversation. She was calm. We asked her to lay down. She was cooperative.
So Telma peacefully laid down for you.
Yeah.
She did not resist.
No.
She didn't scream.
No.
She allowed you to tie her up.
Yeah.
He admitted to assisting Dandurand in tying the hands and feet of both Boinville and later her 8-year-old daughter, emphasizing, however, he was in over his head following cues from Haley, and it was never his intention to get tangled up in the violence that ensued.
I'm here to take accountability for what I did do. I wish there was a camera there to see what actually had happened, because I did not hurt her and I did not have any intention of hurting her. I thought we were just gonna, run away.
The act of physically beating, chopping, and killing Telma Boinville, he explained, happened when he was outside of the house, placing the murder in the hands of Haley Dandurand.
You know, I went outside and I was gone maybe 10 minutes or so, and I come back and she's bloodied and it looks like she's not awake, you know, like she was unconscious, and I was just kind of freaking out.
Brown described leaving the scene in horror, while Dandurand remained calm and focused. Upon reaching the Mililani Town Center, Brown admitted to prosecuting attorney Scott Bell that the two drank heavily, not having a plan, and couldn't clearly recall the events leading up to and following the arrest.
The trial went on for 2 weeks, and when both sides rested the case, the jury only needed a few hours of deliberation before Stephen Brown was found guilty of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of burglary in Telma's brutal slaying. And if you thought that the crazy in this story was over, it's not. Not by a long shot. The jury also had to go through a sentencing hearing for his crimes. Stephen's attorney advocated for the jury to show Stephen leniency, saying that he's a changed man, and I'm quoting this, that he's not dangerous, so that you must consider the protection of the public. Yes, his attorney, William Bagasol, actually said that. His psychiatrist also spoke on Stephen's behalf, saying in the case of Mr. Brown, he has found God. As a born-again, he's a devout Christian. Now look, I'm not saying that reform isn't possible or that it is, impossible under any circumstance. I get it. Some people truly do feel remorse. They find God when they're in prison. They have a come to Jesus moment, as they say, and they truly try to repent and, restructure their lives. But I am so sick of people automatically leaning on the faith excuse when they are a criminal. Saying, no, I found God. I'm born again. I've been reading the Bible every day in my prison cell. Not buying it. There are some people out there, in my opinion, who are just born evil, bred evil, stay evil. And I think that this couple is a perfect example of that. Which, that's just my opinion. Allegedly, that's just my opinion. But what do you think? Prosecutors, on the other hand, of course said that he was and still is in extreme danger to the public and should of course remain in custody for a very long time. One of the prosecutors said that surely whatever religious beliefs he now subscribes to were absent the day he buried a machete into Telma's skull. The jury came to a decision and ruled that an extended sentence should be considered in the case, saying that he posed a continued risk to the public. However, it is ultimately up to the judge to decide whether Stephen Brown should spend the rest of his life in prison with or without the possibility of parole. And the judge is scheduled to make her decision in May of 2023. Now, Haley's trial is coming up in July, and she is still sticking with her story that she isn't guilty and she's blaming Stephen, which I'm super curious to know what you guys think. Is this a classic scenario of both perpetrators blaming each other, even though they were both equally involved, a la Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow? That's just my prediction for their upcoming trial. I think they're going to flip on each other. Or do you believe that it was all Stephen? And do you think that Haley was just along for the ride that day and Stephen was the one who killed Telma? I personally don't think that she was just a victim in all of this and went along with what her boyfriend was doing, because that doesn't coincide and equate with you popping in the earrings of the woman that is laying bloody on the floor. It doesn't equate and match up to you throwing on the backpack of the little girl you just tied up to a bed and put a bag over her head. Those, to me, that's behavior that's indicative and more in line with somebody who has no remorse, somebody who's callous, cold, calculated, violent, cruel, evil, weird, the magic word, you name it. My opinion. And the one thing I'm having a really hard time with in this case is, why did Telma have to die? They could have tied her up, just like they did with her daughter, and left. And not only was she killed, but it was complete overkill. There's not much known about who Haley and Stephen are other than their social media, so I'm not sure if there was a history of mental issues or major maybe drug use going on. I know Stephen admitted that they were drinking heavily, but still, who gets wasted and then just decides to kill someone out of nowhere? It just seems crazy and it doesn't make much sense to me, and I'm not sure if I'm buying that version of events and if that's how things actually went down. I think it was a lot more sinister from the outset, and that these two people were going to kill someone and it was only a matter of time. You don't go from two people agreeing to go burglarize a house to two people agreeing to murder. At least to me anyway. I don't know. I feel like there was way more to this story that we unfortunately won't ever know about, or that won't come out until Haley's trial, especially if she's trying to flip the burden on to Stephen what is she going to say in that trial, and what evidence and discovery may come out. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, because this is such a crazy and very tragic case. People that knew Telma said that the ruling brings some closure to a crime that shocked their tight-knit North Shore community. And one friend said, "I'm very happy for the decision, but that's not going to bring Telma back. But at least we know that justice was served today." Another friend said, "For that to happen to somebody so close to you, it's just unheard of in Hawaii and the North Shore." I'm so glad that Makana survived this horrific tragedy, and I hope and pray that one day she will be able to heal from this, because I literally can't imagine how terrified she must have been on that day. But I'm glad that she was able to speak the truth in order to get justice for her mom, and I think her mom would be so proud of her for that. My heart breaks for Telma's family and friends and the whole North Shore community, and I hope that Telma will get the justice that she deserves, that the sentencing will be harsh, and that Haley will be found guilty and her sentencing will be harsh as well. But we won't know that until May, and then until this summer when her trial happens. So I will let you guys know the updates in that, because like I said, usually in cases where the people flip on each other, like I suspect is going to go down in Daybell Vallow. That's my 10 to life prediction right now. I think they're flipping. But usually in situations like that, the evidence and the discovery that comes pouring out in the trial is kind of shocking, to be quite honest, because they're trying to, of course, paint the other person as the mastermind, the monster, all of these things. So when Haley's trial starts, it's going to be very interesting to see what other information we get, what other statements she makes about Stephen's guilt, his planning, his plotting. So I'll keep you updated on that once we learn more, because as I said, I think this case is far from over. Although he has now been found guilty and is awaiting sentencing, there's still so much happening, and it's still out there in the news. It's all over TikTok. It's everywhere, because more details keep surfacing, and people are trying to figure out not only why this happened, but why was the overkill done in such a way with so many different weapons and tools. It doesn't make sense. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think they were both equally a part of this and equally to blame? What do you believe the sentence should be? Do you believe that he did find God and he deserves leniency? I mean, God, insert huge eye roll here, right? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, I will keep you updated on here through YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, so that you get notified of these case updates and other cases as they emerge and pop up. And as always, follow along on Instagram, because it is so much faster for me to post updates over there. And it's @_Annie Elise, and it's easy for me to just jump on my stories and give case updates over there if I can't come all the way over to YouTube. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in with me today on this one. It was not easy to hear, I know. So I will keep you updated. And until the next one, stay safe.